Hey everyone, and welcome back to What's the Plan, the podcast where we dive into the matters of our careers in the architecture and urban planning field. I'm Haley.
And I'm Andrea. So Haley, what's the plan this week?
This week's plan is all about Vision Zero.
The much elusive Vision Zero.
That's correct.
In Toronto, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin on this topic.
Yeah.
As motor vehicle accidents frustrate me to no end. It feels like every day, especially this past week, I wake up to the news that another pedestrian was either hit and injured or killed by a car overnight.
There has been a lot more pedestrian injuries and deaths in Toronto lately. In particular, the last 2 pandemic years, people have been starting to notice it more, and it's becoming more worrisome.
So this calendar year alone, 2022, we're only not even 5 months in.
Yeah.
In Toronto, there has been 10 pedestrian deaths. Just deaths alone. Varying ages from ages 30 to 87 years old.
87.
Yeah. So that being said, one of the main reasons why motor vehicle accidents frustrate me is the fact that a lot of times they're preventable.
That's right.
And that's what Vision Zero is designed to do.
Exactly. The cornerstone of Vision Zero is that all these outcomes are preventable and that human safety should not be traded for efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, Andrea, how exactly does Vision Zero prevent road accidents?
Okay, so first off, Vision Zero is a multinational traffic safety policy that aims to achieve a system where no fatalities or serious injuries are resulted. And it's developed in Sweden in the late 1990s, and there are 4 elements that make up the principles of Vision Zero.
Okay.
So the first is ethics, which means that human life and health should not be allowed in the long run to be traded off against the benefits of the road transport system, such as mobility. The second element is responsibility.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, this is a big one. So until recently, responsibility for crashes and injuries was placed principally on the individual road user. In Vision Zero, responsibility is shared between the providers of the system and the road users. So what they mean is the system designers and enforcers, such as those providing the road infrastructure, the car making industry, and the police.
Right.
Are responsible for the functioning of the system. At the same time, the road user, the drivers, is responsible for following basic rules such as obeying speed limits and not driving while under the influence of anything.
For sure.
And if the road users fail to follow such rules, the responsibility then falls on the system designers to redesign a system that actually includes rules and regulations.
Right. Okay.
And the third safety element is actually just safety philosophy.
Okay.
In the past, the approach to road safety was generally to put the onus on the road user, as mentioned earlier. And in Vision Zero, the outlook is now there's a different outlook actually.
Yeah.
And that has been used with success in other fields. It is 2 premises.
Okay.
The 2 premises are human beings make errors.
Yes. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
That's fine. However, there is a critical limit beyond which survival and recovery from an injury are not possible. And as a result, the following maximum travel speeds are suggested.
Okay.
So if you're in a location with possible conflicts between pedestrians and cars, the tolerance is 30 kilometers per hour. Or for those who use a different system, is 19 miles per hour.
Okay.
As 30 is the tolerance for which a person can take when hit by a car.
My goodness.
Yeah. So for intersections where it is possible that if there were to have a vehicular accident, there are side impacts between cars and pedestrians, you can go up to 50 kilometers an hour. Okay. Which is 31 miles per hour. And then on roads with possible frontal impacts between cars, so it's only accidents between cars and no people, including rural roads, that is 70 kilometers an hour, which is 43 miles per hour. And the final speed category is roads with no possibility of a side impact or a frontal impact, so highways.
Right. Okay.
And that is 100 kilometers per hour or 62 miles per hour. And just to clarify, impact in this situation means like interventions, also like crash barriers and grade separations to stop a moving vehicle as well.
Okay.
So like it doesn't, like, it's not always like a vehicle hit another vehicle or a person. It's like sometimes it's just a single car accident.
For sure. So the driver or operator of the vehicle would also be considered like a person that could get injured.
Yeah, that's taken into account.
So what if cities want a higher speed limit than just 30 kilometers per hour?
So there are options.
Okay.
If a city wants to increase the speed over 30 kilometers per hour, it is recommended that they physically separate pedestrian crossings from the traffic.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get into more of that later. And the fourth and final element is creating mechanisms for change, which is essentially all providers and enforcers of the road transport system are responsible to the citizens and must guarantee their safety in the long term.
Okay. Yeah.
So making sure that like people actually do their jobs in every part of the step, and no one like falls off the horse, because if one person doesn't do their job, then the whole system fails.
For sure.
Yeah. And like as for how any of the four elements are actually implemented varies from country to country or even city to city.
Yeah.
So Haley, what's Canada's approach to Vision Zero?
So in Canada, we operate on three main levels of government. Okay. So we have the federal, the provincial, and the municipal. And so with that said, transportation and motor safety is within the provincial jurisdiction. So Vision Zero varies from province to province.
Okay.
So provincially, British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario have developed Vision Zero plans, while other provinces and territories such as Alberta, Prince Edward Island, and the Northwest Territories have created road safety plans that don't specifically include Vision Zero principles.
Okay.
So Neil Arison, the author of the Safe Systems Approach for Road Safety, breaks down how changes in road safety can be achieved if we shift our thinking, make road safety a priority, and adopt Vision Zero and Safe Systems approach.
Okay.
He states that the only way that Vision Zero can be adopted in a meaningful form is when it is accompanied by a steadfast commitment to safe systems thinking.
So, what exactly does that mean?
Thank you for asking. So it's often said that 90% of crashes are caused by drivers, but this is only because we have designed a system that allows 90% of crashes to be caused by drivers. So the Vision Zero and Safe Systems approach is about creating a system that works automatically by design to make road user deaths and injuries as minimal as possible. This approach also means implementing evidence-based measures for safe drivers, speeds, roads, and vehicles, and understanding that each of these layers are imperfect and finding ways to strengthen them.
So, can you go into detail about the 4 layers and why they may be weak?
Yeah. So the first layer is the driver.
The biggest one of them all.
Traditionally, we're really focused on ensuring that drivers really know what they're doing on the road.
Yeah.
And so it's so important that we make sure that the drivers are educated before getting them on the road in order to get them to be able to drive better. However, evidence found that no type of driver education leads to a reduction of traffic crashes.
That's unfortunate to hear.
It's so upsetting. But at the same time, some amounts of road safety progress have been achieved through programs that impact driver behavior. Andrea, can you think of one?
Yes. Drunk driving, especially in the group MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah. So in BC, a study found that revolutionary and tough new laws for drunk driving that were introduced in 2010 resulted in reductions of alcohol-involved fatal crashes of 40.4%. So that's almost...
like improvement.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so because of these laws, almost half of the fatal crashes that are alcohol-related have been reduced.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And another way to increase road safety is through enforcement, whether it's police enforcement or automated enforcement. such as red light cameras, as we call them here. However, although these can make a dent in reducing road trauma, to make more progress, we need to consider the next layer, which is safe speeds. The central tenet of the safe system approach is safe speeds, because appropriate speeds provide an incredible safety buffer that reduces the likelihood of a crash by shortening stopping distances while lessening the amount of raw kinetic energy released on people when crashes occur.
Yes. Wow, what a physics lesson.
Exactly. So as you mentioned earlier, it's not about eliminating crashes. It's about how, when a crash happens, it can result in the least amount of injury. And that's why the setting and managing of safe speeds, which are appropriate for each type of road and its injury potential, is important. Next, we move on to the next layer, which is safe roads. Safe roads play a massive role in reducing serious injuries and deaths to people in collisions, as you mentioned, like the design of roads. And so in addition to reducing speed limits, roadway measures that generate safe speeds can be used, giving streets attributes that correspond with the limits. So it's not only about producing speed limits that you hope people will follow, but it's also about designing roads in a way that will force drivers to obey. And so this could include making turning radii shorter, narrowing vehicle lanes, converting two-way stop intersections to four-way stop intersections, implementing traffic calming measures such as speed bumps and raised pedestrian crossings. Another way to increase safety on roadways is through signalization measures that separate vulnerable road users from vehicle traffic. So this can include two separations. The first one is temporal separations, which can include dedicated traffic movements like pedestrian signals, vehicle turning signals, or restrictions on turns during red lights. And space separations that could include measures such as wide sidewalks, floating bus stops, sidewalk bulges and crossing medians, and reduced crossing distances and tunnels and overpasses that provide complete separation of pedestrians from cars.
Makes sense.
And another very good intersection design that provides unparalleled levels of safety are roundabouts.
Oh, really? How come?
So, especially in North America, roundabouts aren't that common. So to start off, this increases safety, especially in North America, because it's an unnatural way for drivers to move. And so because of this, drivers understand intuitively that they need to pay more attention.
So it's more of a focusing thing.
That's one of the reasons why. Other reasons why roundabouts are very good is that they reduce speeds and eliminate deadly right-angle crashes, increase alertness, and demand all vehicles to travel in the same direction. So that decreases the likelihood of two vehicles to end up in a head-on collision.
Makes sense. Yeah, and like if there's no head-on collisions and you like swipe someone on the side, it's like you both end up in different places.
Exactly.
You don't like continue crashing.
For sure. The last layer of the safe systems approach is, of course, safe vehicles. And the role of vehicles in a safe system is massive and comes in two parts. The first part is passive safety, which includes passenger compartment, effective crumple zones to absorb crash forces, and seatbelts and airbags to cushion people from crash forces. So how this currently falls short is that these measures are not yet widely enough diffused across the new vehicle market.
Wait, so airbags, seatbelts, and what are the other two?
Effective crumple zones. Zones to absorb crash forces. So what that means is that the front portion of vehicles need to be built with
like extra space?
With the ability to crumple and absorb the crash, as opposed to strong steel bars that will stay intact in the chance of a collision.
Yeah, and like it would bounce back.
Exactly.
I see.
So
none of these are regulated still, or fully in place?
Not fully regulated, and some areas still need some work on it.
Really? Wow, okay. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. The second part of vehicle safety is active safety, which is comprised principally of technologies that work to avoid crashes or take control of a vehicle in crash-like situations. So this includes crash avoidance systems that can include forward collision warning, traffic sign recognition, adaptive headlights, lane departure systems, intelligent speed assistance, and even fatigue monitoring.
Like monitoring the driver?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've actually driven in a few cars that tell me that I need to wake up, even though I am awake.
Yeah.
But it just provides an extra sense of safety because it alerts the driver in a situation where they may be tired without realizing.
Yeah, wow. That sounds like pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That way it's like all the onus is not falling onto the driver.
Exactly.
They have someone else helping them out.
Exactly.
Especially when they're driving alone.
Yeah, that's a big one. Because when we are alone, we might not realize how tired we actually are.
Yeah.
But again, even though active safety technologies and self-driving cars will outperform humans for safety, there are still always unanticipated failures, as well as problematic outside conditions that are unexpected.
Yeah, so it sounds like the safe systems approach has a lot to it that we can build on and work on and to continue making the roads a better place for everybody.
For sure, that's exactly what the plan is.
So, despite all that Canada has planned in regards to Vision Zero, in particular Toronto, like, why are road accidents on the rise?
For sure. So, based on the 4 layers that I just mentioned, it's evident that the city of Toronto main focus for their Vision Zero plan is on reducing speeds. Which is a great step and is not unwelcomed. But as I mentioned, it's only one of the layers that need attention and need to be fixed.
I see.
And without any emphasis on finding solutions for safe drivers, safe roads, and safe vehicles, the city of Toronto, unfortunately, their attempts at Vision Zero will not be successful.
Yeah, wow. That's unfortunate to hear.
It is. And when we think about it, the roads that we have now within the city have not changed since they've been built. And we know now that they've been built in a time where the focus has been on vehicles.
Yes.
And so without that change, without the road changes we need, we're not going to be able to achieve Vision Zero.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that unless or until the day that the city prioritizes pedestrians and like cyclists, our roads will continue to be deadly. Yes. It's not even so much as just prioritizing pedestrians and cyclists. It's just understanding that the vehicle is not all there is to roads. Okay. Good to know. Well, I know that some countries in Europe are doing a little bit better. So why don't you go into that? Okay, so there's actually several countries in Europe that are doing a lot better than Canada. I don't really think it's a competition because, like, Canada isn't really doing as much. And a lot of the major difference is, like, just down to the mindset. As you mentioned just now. So, like, the mindset of legislators and bureaucrats in the road safety leading countries, they assume the full responsibility of implementing fail-safe systems. So particularly like in Sweden and Germany, they do have the approach called Vision Zero. And in a country like Netherlands, rather than calling it Vision Zero, they call it sustainable safety. And in each case, the safe system approach is an evidence-based approach, focusing on infrastructure, vehicle regulation, speed limits, vehicle regulation and speed limits to protect all road users, And when we think in North America, road user, you usually think cars, but for them, they think the whole approach. So, like, pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles.
I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So can you describe to us some of these approaches?
Yeah, for sure. So for infrastructure, as you mentioned earlier, reduced and narrow lanes, because like they use a psychological approach, whereas like the narrow the lane, the slower people drive because they think it's like a tighter squeeze.
Yeah.
And also another element, it's like they don't want to like scratch the side of their car.
Yes.
So they reduce the speed in the event that there is a physical barrier blocking them. A second one is building physical barriers to separate vehicles from cyclists, such as planter boxes or, like, as you mentioned, concrete curbs and raised concrete curbs. And as well, just the omnipresent automatic speed cameras act as a deterrent against reckless driving. And, like, unlike Toronto, where, like, the cameras are only, like, located in, like, one intersection within, like, I don't know, 20 blocks.
Yeah.
In Europe, they're located a lot more frequently.
Oh, okay.
Especially in London, where like almost every intersection has like a camera.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing they do is the vehicle regulation, and in particular is the size and the weight of vehicles.
Oh.
So as you mentioned earlier, the speed limits are determined by how much impact a passenger or a pedestrian can take.
For sure.
So when it comes to physics, it's like the lighter the car, the less of a impact and less of a force they create.
Right.
So, which is why they really look into like how much your car weighs, what your car is made out of, and all that kind of stuff, and also the size of cars.
Right.
Because the roads in Europe are typically much smaller or narrower, their cars are also narrower to fit those roads, and as a result, the impact is not as great as in Canada.
That makes sense.
As well, in particularly Oslo, the capital of Norway, they actually ban vehicles from driving in the city center.
Wow.
So the city center becomes more of a pedestrian-oriented development area.
What a dream.
Yeah, and like another reason why they're able to do that is the city is quite walkable.
For sure.
Everything is located within everything you need is located within a certain amount of distance that you can walk, so you don't also need to rely on cars to go.
So they're like 15-minute cities?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And like speed limits, you and I have both mentioned earlier, just reducing speed limits or having set speed limits for different types of roads.
Yeah.
And as well in Norway, the national government actually has set a standard speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour within cities and 80 kilometers per hour outside of them, with local governments able to go actually lower. So like the whole country, no one can decide to go higher, they can only go lower.
Wow, that's amazing.
And as for legislation, something unique to Norway is that when a crash occurs, it actually triggers a government investigation.
Oh my goodness.
So like in Toronto, typically if there's a car accident, it's the police that does the investigating. And like they only, I guess the investigation is quite minimal, especially if both drivers remain on the scene.
For sure.
And it's mostly just to like collect the information, who's at fault, when you need to file an insurance, it's like how much insurance each person has to pay and all that kind of stuff. And like there's only a police investigation in Toronto if like one of the vehicles fail to remain, or if the vehicle involved fails to remain, or perhaps a death is involved.
Right.
Whereas like in Norway, like any little accident, a huge investigation is triggered to look into like why that accident happened, what were the things that prevented it from being I guess prevented.
Yeah.
And to also look into contributing factors and search for ways to avoid it in the future.
That's so good, because not only is that like super diligent, but that also imposes an extra layer of fear. Yeah. Which then in turn increases awareness and safety.
Yes, 100%. So overall, traffic deaths in Norway have tumbled down from 560 in 1970 to just about 93 in 2021.
Wow.
And in Sweden, they cut traffic fatalities in half in the last 20 years. That followed its Vision Zero commitment from 200 or just to 270 deaths. And in 2021, Swedish road deaths actually dropped under 200.
That's amazing. So in conclusion, the goal of Vision Zero is to achieve zero fatalities.
100%.
So Vision Zero saves lives as long as the road providers and safety providers uphold their responsibility to citizens.
Yeah, and despite the implementation of Vision Zero in Canada, Toronto has not been successful due to the fact that they have not prioritized safe roads, safe vehicles, and just safe philosophy on it.
Yeah, for sure. So in comparison, Vision Zero is successful in Europe due to actual infrastructure changes, vehicle regulation, enforcements of speed limits, and legislation.
Sounds about right.
And so achieving Vision Zero was the plan for now. Listen to our next episode to continue figuring it out with us.
Thanks for following along to this episode. If you liked it, please give us a like, review, and subscribe for more. Until then, follow us on Instagram at What's the Plan Podcast for what the next plan is.